Whoa, went to 3-0. Hey, y'all. Uh, Welcome. My name is Jerod of Will and Jerod Make Game. And over here is,
Will, I love that we're on in different directions on each other's screens. I'm
is
always
it?
like pointing up at Jared and he's pointing over at me.
Uh, well, another episode of Will and Jerod Make a Game. We are making I'm going to say probably the most seminal role-playing game that's ever been created by us. Anyway,
It- Definitely.
for
100%. That is not hyperbole.
this is our exploration into navigating how to make a role-playing game of the scope, the size, and also I think we're putting a lot of thought into what we can and can't do with it as well. And so we are recording our process. I hope you're enjoying our journey that we're going along here. And so my name is Jared. You can find some of my stuff at Paroxysm by Design, the website. You can also find under Jerod Leopold under RPG Drive-Through at itch.io. And you can find most of my stuff right now, honestly, under this guy's stuff.
Yeah, I run Gamenomicon, which Jared has done a bunch of writing for Party First Adventures and Sourcebook on Twilight War, and we published his um first Kickstarter game, at least. I don't think it was your first total like published game, but first Kickstarter game, Goblin Market. So you can find all the usual places as well, itch and drive through RPG and so on. Look for Gamenomicon or hit up the old social media. I think it's Gamenomicon on all of the relevant ones except for the site formerly known as Twitter, where it is the underscore Gamenomicon.
And Will is too humble to even mention this point, probably because he's nervous, but I keep bringing it up. Uh, he is also moments layout away from sending Lords of Terror out the door. What's Lords of Terror, Will?
Yeah, so Lord of Terror is my Diablo inspired solo kind of dungeon delve. So some folks, certainly listeners at this point, I think may be familiar with the one page solo system I created. The second guest system had a little modicum of popularity. And every time I've put out a new game using that system, I've tried to figure out a new way to expand or twist like it beyond what you would think a one page solo journaling game could do. So for instance, one version makes it actually a duet game about time travelers. A couple others gradually add more and more traditional role playing elements, stats and pools to manage and things like that. And eventually I hit the idea of, oh geez, what if I actually made this like, what if there was combat? What if there was actual dungeon crawling and classes to pick and all that sort of thing? So thus was born Lord of Terror. Mostly Diablo. Maybe you could say a little bit of Dark Souls type stuff's thrown in there as well. And ran that during last year's Zine Quest on Kickstarter. Hoping to kick that out here shortly so that we can turn our Kickstarter attention over to Honorbound, which the landing page is already up for it. So everybody's in the links to the episode. Go follow it. I think there was around like 30 followers when I last looked. So jump
Really?
in there so you'll be aware whenever it does officially launch.
That's fantastic. I didn't know we had that kind of number already. I know it's not, for some people that might sound a little small, some people might sound a lot. For us, I'm just pretty happy. That's a nice start. I think
Yeah,
that's fantastic, honestly.
like considering this show is most all of the publicity we've had for it, I think that's a good start.
Yep. And that brings me up into the idea here, like while we're getting up Lords of Terror, I'm working on a Mutant City Blues. Why are we talking about all this stuff? It's because we, at least I am, I know I can speak for myself anyway. I'm terrible at being a shill for myself. And that is just one of the hats that you have to wear while working on your own tabletop role playing game or anything that you want to try and produce on your own. And that's something we want to talk about today is just what are the different things that we were doing before we slide into more of a comprehensive, bigger thing. Like we can talk about writing, the theory of writing, the space that we're writing in, like the difference between doing a one shot and doing a campaign of for an adventure and presenting that to the public for playtesting is are two different things. And we can talk about this writing stuff. What you don't see behind the scenes are the us actually doing the playtesting, or will just like Sisyphus putting these tables together for layout.
I'm
Um,
never gonna live that down, am I?
no, no, and you shouldn't, because the thing is, I know your
Uh,
pain. I thought it would be an easy thing to do, and I just made a little stat block grid for Goblin Market for the
uh-huh.
adventures. And then every time I came out with a new adventure for it, I'm like, well, I'm just going to change it slightly, which is the worst thing in the world to do. Like, it's better just to get rid of the whole thing and just be
Yeah.
like, all right, here's what we're going to do now. We're going to add it. It's going to look better. But for some reason, I was just stubborn and I just wanted, no, let's just tweak it a little bit. Yeah, no, it's pain. Tables are pain. Okay. And I think anyone who,
Tables are pain. Oh my goodness. You know what? I think at some point we're gonna need to start offering merch. And I really think Tables Are Pain is a great RPG t-shirt.
and if we can get it together with our huge wrestling following that we have too.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
there's a big overlap there.
What some of you may not know. Uh, so yeah, we as creators, we wear a lot of hats. And so that's what our episode's going to be about. And like how, like Will's got his hat on. What is the most recent thing that you've had to do that wasn't directly involved with editing or writing for one of your projects?
Honestly, the most, well, gosh, actually, depending on how you look at it, honestly, the most recent is this, what we're doing right now, which we
Yeah,
didn't talk about or acknowledge when we were kicking the can before recording this, but it just occurred to me like this is true. This is
yeah,
not in that normal scope of reading, writing, editing, and it's something in a general sense I've got experience with from podcasting for the White Book for the Game of Thrones card game for umpteen years. But it is definitely a different type of skill set to sit down here and be willing to talk through a thought process, to attempt to make it coherent to other people. I know we wander down some rabbit holes, but and also to be willing to or to have the thick enough skin to take it when folks razz you years later for how terribly you rated Gaston Gray when the new card came out and you were doing card reviews. That one will live forever. But that's just a different skill set. That not only the speaking, but also there's editing to put into it. I mean, I'm a pretty light hand at editing. I In the past I have done things like trim silence and ums and ahs and so on. And after a few years of doing that for the White Book, realize it's just more time and effort than I felt comfortable putting into it. But there's still something to be said there. And then, of course, there's the publicity, the hyping of the show, which is similar to but different from hyping, you know, hey, we're running a Kickstarter or whatever. So that's probably the very most recent because I'm actively doing it right now.
well, and this ties into something like you've hit on so many great points here is that you are in the process to get someone on the show to interview about this exact process for
Hmm.
marketing. And that's what we're doing here with this podcast. We were like, hey, wouldn't it be kind of funny to do this? And we're like, Well, I don't know about funny, but I think it's something we should do, I
Yeah,
think it's a good idea. Um, and so
actually, and
like,
I think it was Jared's idea. Just credit where it's due.
well, so like just give a quick rundown for people that are thinking about doing something like this, uh, the sort of on taking real quick for your podcasting and for doing this on my side. The only thing I'm doing is OBS, the free programming on Discord, recording, uploading to YouTube. This is the bare minimum that you can do, and I am personally quite ashamed of myself. Like I need to be willing to spend the money on at least a microphone or a headset. So I know I come off soft in every episode, and I know that's really jarring to people. And it's driving people away, and I don't like that, and I apologize. But like on your end, because you said you do some editing, that means you've got some editing software. What kind of stuff do you use?
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned hardware, and I did. I'll acknowledge I bought a camera. I've not had a webcam in umpteen years, but I bought it specifically for this project. So because Jerod wanted to record video, and I've got my Blue Yeti that's sitting here next to me that I should probably look more directly at while I speak. But oh well. On the software front, I'm generally just editing in Audacity, which is a free open source program. I do use another software that I purchased several years back now called Ophonic or Auphonic. So that's Auphonic, that I use for the leveling and balancing and kind of the pre-processing
Ooh.
of the audio. That I have not, like, because it's the same stuff that I've already talked about with you, and then listened to at least part of while editing the podcast. I've not like re-listened to your YouTube videos, so I apologize, Jerod. But if you're sounding a lot quieter in that feed than other people, something like Ophonic may help with the leveling to balance that out. So I do that. Then of course, it's got to be tagged properly. And as far as all the metadata tags, say this is episode number 33, this is this show, this is the embedded podcast art, all that jazz. Which I use a program called it's just MP3 tag. It's another freebie, thankfully. Let's see. Recording itself. I didn't mention that. We are currently recording through Discord, through a free bot called Craig. That's just Craig, like the name Craig. Um, that is pretty great if you're doing this type of thing to download audio in a wide variety of formats. I think I about put Jerod to sleep when I was talking about Craig with Zach after we finished our playtest
I had to
or
get out.
our one
I had to
shot
get
the
out.
other day. So I'll just say pretty much any format you might need, you can get it from Craig. And it's free and dead simple. I've used other platforms in the past. I used to use Zencaster when I was
Yeah,
regularly using the White Book, which is kind of an all-in-one web package for recording multi-channel audio for podcasts, and it can do video, and it can do soundboards and things like that as well. They no longer have a worthwhile free tier. Granted, I actually subscribed to it for a long time, but they also no longer have a worthwhile free tier. So if anyone wants to test it, I would not recommend that. At this point, I say just go to Craig. Just use Craig on Discord. It'll do everything that you actually need. I think that's most all the stuff.
that's awesome. Like the a nice list of stuff that's all free except for the Alphonic, right? You have to pay for that one.
Yes, I bought it several years ago for the desktop version, which honestly I
Yeah.
don't even think they offer anymore. I
Mm,
was looking at it at the website again pretty recently, within the last like week,
yeah.
and they now have, I believe, you can process through the website up to 2 hours of audio a month free, which
Yeah.
depending on how
Rough.
much you're doing,
Yeah.
that might not get you very far. Or I believe the standard subscription, which was, I don't know, like 100 hours of audio or something, like enough. Most folks would be very set. I want to say that was maybe 20 a month. So probably not a prohibitive expense. I mean,
Sure.
not
But
not compared to, I've looked at industrial or like
yeah,
enterprise software,
yeah,
that's 300 or a grand a month or
yeah.
something in my day job, and like this is nothing like that, thankfully.
Well, so then like we have to record it and then we have to upload it, which that for the podcast part of it, you go to Spotify. For the video part of it, I just put up on YouTube. And part of that YouTube process, like I've been doing this for a couple of years for doing my card games that I play,
Hmm.
Ashes Reborn. There's a lot of games on there. But what I just figured out how to do is YouTube Shorts. I've only done like four of them, but now for this specifically, I'm going to start searching for shorts that we can do. Like pretty much
Yeah.
any time that we laugh, that's like, oh, check out what that is and get it on there, right?
Are you going to start throwing those up on TikTok next?
If I knew how, yeah,
Okay. I mean, as far as I understand YouTube Shorts, they're basically the same idea. So
yeah, I think so
time
too.
to get on TikTok.
I mean, it's a wider audience. And the thing is, like, I have got like 40 some people that are subscribed to my channel because it's a very niche thing that we're doing here and with other stuff, right? Uh, the most watched thing was a championship game and it had like 60 hits or whatever. There's an actual play of Goblin Market that I did that has like 107.
Okay.
In one day, a short from Goblin Market that I posted over the course of like 2 or 3 days had over 1,000 hits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it seems like a tool
Yeah.
that is going to be used now. Has that translated to anyone coming back to the website to look at our show or whatever? A little bit, a little bit from what I can tell. So I mean, it's
Okay,
something.
good.
So these are all stuff that you got to think about. And like we're going to be, like I said, knock on wood, interviewing with someone that they're a big part of their empire is built off this, you know. And I really hope that would be a great get to be able to talk to them.
Yeah.
Um,
And I guess that's one of the other things it's worth hitting on that we're doing, is trying to talk to other people, like specifically podcast related stuff that we're doing. We're like, we kind of on a lark decided to get RP on. I
yeah,
forget honestly now what kind of question we had in our Honorbound
yeah,
dev
there was
chat that
something
prompted it.
specific. There was something very specific. You're absolutely right. I
Yeah,
can't
and
remember
I
either.
don't, and it was kind of a very specific. I was like, oh, well, hey, I talked to RP from Fari Games off and on. Like, yeah, he would definitely know that. Like, let me check. And then
Yeah,
we were like, well, what if we just interviewed him?
yeah,
And then we were like, well, what if we interview more people?
yeah,
Like, and now it's been hit or miss. I'm not going to say I've just blasted a bunch of people
yeah.
asking or anything
Same,
like that, but
same
the
here.
handful we reached out to, we've had some that I think have gone well so far that hopefully will be coming soon. We've had some that didn't pan out, but I think it's going to be good to get some different perspectives.
Yeah, and can't say anything yet, right? Because if something falls through, then it falls through.
Right?
But we got invited to be interviewed.
Yeah,
Whoa,
that was that was pretty rad.
whoa,
And I was really curious. I don't think this is too big of a spoiler to say because it's not any names involved or anything. But I did
yeah,
ask, "Oh, hey, what prompted
yeah.
you to reach out?" And they said, "Oh, I was just like browsing upcoming stuff on Kickstarter, and yours looked cool." So, like,
Oh,
I think that means like the image and the little like tagline that we've got up there already
great,
has kind of a built-in hook for folks, or at least
amazing.
someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's amazing. And then once we get a project a little bit more in the can, we already know a couple people that we want to contact to do interviews or whatever. Hopefully, we can help them out. They can help us out. Whether
Hmm.
that comes to pass or not, we'll find out.
Right,
But
right. I guess we shouldn't count any chickens before they hatch, but
yeah. And so then, like you brought up the Kickstarter page. So you're the one that deals with the Kickstarter page. That's gonna be something
Yeah.
I gotta learn how to do like in a month or two for sure for the Mutant City Blues stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm happy to help answer any questions or look over stuff if you want. So yeah, I've got some real loose stuff in there at the moment in order to even get it where we could have a landing page for folks to follow.
yeah,
But there's a pretty basic uh Kickstarter page that's assembled there that I'm
yeah,
sure at this point, because I assembled it, you know 3 months ago probably at this point, that a lot of our content and scope has kind of shifted or tweaked since then, that I think will need revisited. But there's also, kind of the behind the scenes, so to speak, effort that went into, I mean, I guess that, but also what is currently visible, the image, the Honorbound
yeah,
logo, as it were, that took a little tweaking and playing around with stuff. I
yeah.
did some like social media kind of polls with some different versions. Hey, what version of the text do people like? And got some really great feedback and interaction
Ah,
from folks about that.
even the stuff
Um,
that was put up on another thing that you do, which this is another side thing, which I know we have an interview with someone that does this on a much grander scale, but you posted those photos. I think you put them on the general channel of your Discord, the Gamenomicon Discord channel, right?
um,
Or was that
of the
private?
honor bound images,
Yeah,
or okay,
yeah, the
yeah,
Honorbound
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think I did on Discord as well. Yes.
yep. So that's a whole
Um,
nother thing, right?
yeah,
We've got this is a Gamenomicon Discord channel specifically. I'm on there a lot too, just because a lot of our shared projects that we've worked on,
yeah,
right? Um, and so like, yeah, that's a whole thing. Granted, not a huge population, but you know what? You did a jam. That's another thing that you're doing. And
yeah.
that brought in people into your Discord channel, right?
Yeah, that's brought some more people in. I would say within the first maybe 2 weeks or so of the jam, there was quite a bit of chatter from folks and some
Yeah.
really impressive ideas they were kicking around and
Yeah.
images of stuff kind of in progress. It's kind of cooled a little bit. Couple folks said they just had some legitimate life stuff going on, and
Yeah.
they're going to come back to their projects in a little bit. And the jam's running till the end of September, so there's time.
Yep. Absolutely. So if
I think
anyone is
that's
hearing
been
this
good.
right now, right, you can jump into it on itch. I, I, I can't give a shout out specifically to the person whose idea this is, but he posted on Discord, so it's general information. But the idea is using the wound by tension system for a failing submarine plus horror element. Like
Yeah,
perfect marriage. It is a very confined story to be able to tell with short number of rules, with incredibly evocative, horrible things happening, with attention like phenomenal, so good.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm very excited to see how that turns out in
Yep, and
the
that's
end.
just
I
one of
think
the ideas that we saw on there. And so we got the
yeah,
Discord channel that we're doing, the Kickstarter page. We've talked a ton about layout. Um, you're going through the growing pains of going through it again. I am still fumbling. I'm still a neophyte with it. Yes, I've put out stuff with Affinity that you can find on the old shilling network of RPG network, not network, RPG drive through.
um, mhm.
And like it's a tough thing to wrap your head around if it's not it's just such a thick, dense program. Affinity specifically. Now there's other programs you can use. Affinity has been the most affordable that I've ever seen for
Oh yeah,
the wide raw power that you get. It is phenomenal. And yeah, I don't know if there's much else to say about it because there's so much growing pains with that, and there's a lot of cool stuff.
there's so
Like,
much.
help me here.
I think the biggest thing. I mean, I- I'm gonna sound like a shill for them, but like Jared said, it's very powerful, has a ton of options.
Yeah.
It's extremely affordable, and you can purchase and own the software, unlike an Adobe product these days, that type of thing. But also, it's really become kind of the darling of indie and small press RPGs. So there's a ton of chatter about it online in these spaces. You can find other people talking about it that have some experience, maybe, or there's people putting out guides and templates, and
Yeah.
RP in particular is doing like video series on tricks he's learned. And I think just kind of the indie game circle in general is very helpful to other people kind of talking about what they're doing. I mean,
Yes.
this is what we're trying to do to put out here for folks. So I think there are, because of that, there's a lot of good resources for Affinity.
It's been really affirming talking to people for interviews. Even if you get turned down for an interview, everyone's been, for me anyway, very pleasant to deal with. And the idea, like RP talked about it too, like, don't want to keep bringing his name up, but he was such a good guest. And he jived very much the idea of like high tide, right? Let's raise
Hmm.
all boats. The better that the industry can be, it's better for everyone, you know? So
Speaking of, there is, if I can shill another server, I am in the Rising Tide Discord server,
I
which
just
you can
joined that.
probably, yeah, you can probably find that searching on Threads or Twitter or Blue
Uh,
Sky, and any of these sort of things. And it seems like a good place to find those other resources, the other folks that are in similar boats, that maybe will offer some advice, or maybe will sell their skill sets, so to speak.
yeah,
We'll do a little work for hire for you, that type of thing. And it just goes right there. Like, it's right there in the name, Rising Tide, right there. They're
yeah,
trying to lift everybody up. So it seems like a solid spot so far.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Like I know I've been a part of stuff that not necessarily um very active in, but I know the NSR cauldron is always very active. And then got to give a shout out to the Plus One experience. I'm not very active in
Hmm.
that one, but it is active. And they also just got a shout out on Rascal
Oh, yeah.
for, yeah, which is really cool
Awesome.
to see them having this kind of success for creating zines. So there's people out there,
Yeah.
there's tools, and a lot of people want to help you, which is great. Um, yeah, like the more I talk about it, the more excited I get about it. But it's also like also talking about all the hats that you wear putting this all together, right?
Yeah. I mean, it also, I think, us walking through and acknowledging that is also useful for us. It's not just for folks
Yeah,
listening, but for us to remind us that um, all of these other things we're doing are a worthwhile piece of the project as a whole
yeah.
being successful. Which is good sometimes. I think, as long as we don't wander too far off the beaten path on one of these other projects, so to speak, and
That
not apply that toward Honorbound. That's always possible, but
yeah, and that's the thing. Like we do have a lot of other cool projects. Honorbound is still the apple of my eye. I really like the way it's coming around. I am very proud of this project. And I also love that there's more stuff to work on, you
yeah.
know?
Well, I mean,
Uh,
speaking of bringing it back around on Honorbound, one of the biggest things, and a very important thing, um, to do. I don't want to point fingers or anything, but let's say a common complaint that is leveled at indie games a lot of times is that they're just kind of written and then thrown out there, right? And um, I think it's important to us that we don't just do that with Honorbound. So Jared has been running like bi-weekly, right? Playtest games, whole kind of well, how many, 8 session campaign you ran?
so 8 recorded. Yeah, and actually the reason that it ended at 8, 9, somewhere around there. The reason it ended because one of the people that's in our playtest group, for personal reasons, had to drop out. Now we hope we get to see her later on for other stuff. Um, but yeah, and so like I'm doing that bi-weekly for Honorbound, and then I'm also doing the Mutant City Blues playtesting on the other Sundays. So every week,
Oh, wow.
like it right now, if you're listening to this, we're on day 4 or 5 of RPG a day sign up thing. And I think it was day 2 that asked like, what was the last thing that you played? And I was like, well, it was Honorbound. Uh, and the thing is like, I wrote out why. I was like, look, this game's not even out yet, but I think it's really important to do playtesting because you're without doing the playtesting, you can't see the gaps.
Yeah.
And like playtesting it, recording it, going back, watching the recordings is what's that word I'm looking for? Much like tables, it's painful at times. Like now there's also those moments where it's just totally exhilarating, right? When you just nail or the players nail something that you've got set up, or you see them going down a tangent road that you didn't expect. And for these playtesting moments, there's 2 or 3 things I can point to exactly that makes this whole process worthwhile. Um, one of them that we've already talked about in the past episode was the how to build up tension points in the guild system in background stories, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. Had to go through and I'm starting to lose my voice. Had to restructure things altogether. And it just fell apart. And then brought it back in under a new form of the idea of like we didn't have the experience point table really figured out until session 5. The players weren't really into it, they weren't engaging with it. So I was like, okay, well, then we did that episode talking about how to use experience points to help guide the play experience. And that set off a firestorm of where we wanted to go with the game, and it also lit the players, and everything just fell into place. So using experience points is kind of the carrot to engage with their background stories. To in playtest session number 9 or number 7, we have this beautiful scene that was not set up into my playwriting or into what I expected to have that night, but we hit into this very organic scene that was like very tense and a lot of fun to do the role playing. And mechanically, we got to hand out rewards and it furthered other parts of the story. It was everything that we talked about wanting this game to work. Wanted the setting to inform the mechanics to inform the fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it just all hit in this perfect storm. And it's like, wow. And the other part where playtesting really knocked it out of the park for us anyway was when we were talking about species and how to get them to work without going down the rabbit holes of like what Wizards has gone through, like tying certain things to races or whatever. We decided we had to get rid of that. And so instead, we came up with the idea like, well, let the players kind of build upon it on them for themselves. And so at the very beginning of playtest, I was like, all right, well, you guys can kind of tell me what your characters are like in your species. Like, here's an outline. Here's like 3 paragraphs. The rest of it's make up whatever you want. Doesn't matter. And so they made the comment around the third or fourth session. They're like, one of the things that we love is the cultural freedom to insert things from our species into the storyline or just to justify a way that we would act. and,
Okay.
and like they were just like how much fun that was and how much fun it was to experiment with it. I like just grabbed that idea and like, okay, well here's what we're gonna do is that you get an experience point once per session for if you do something with your species. That because I think that's a brilliant idea. I think it's a lot of fun. to do. And so with playtesting, you get to these moments that help solidify your game. Was it what I set out to do for this game? No, no, not at all. But is it something that's bigger and better for our game? Yeah, I really think so. I really do. And I can't wait to get you under the hood for a playtest session, hopefully at the end of the month.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say we're trying to get that scheduled. We're much like some of the other things. Scheduling
Yeah,
comes with some knocking on wood, um, but yeah. That said, as far as your experience there goes, I'm really glad that that worked out so well because that was something I wanted to really ask about if there were any particular surprises, negative or positive, and it sounds like this one was very much a positive. That
yeah.
how much that clicked, kind of being beyond what you expected. So I'm really glad for that.
Yeah, yeah, it's been totally worthwhile. And like, if you go on to the flip side, things that didn't work was the first introduction of how to run the guilds. Was it's it did come back in a pet cemetery way of see what I did there
Uh-huh. I like it.
of for the guild I originally built out. Here's the sovereign that owns the guild. Here's the council that is magically the same number of people plus one as the players is the inner council. And the idea was the players would each take on a council member, and you could change whoever council member you played. And then by doing that, is that each of the council members had like a goal. And so you'd role play the scene for what contracts in the direction that your guild house would go in, which I think is a fascinating, really fun idea. And I tried it out there on the second session, and it was a disaster. It was, we definitely went the other direction. Cool idea. They had fun with it, but they're just like, what are we doing here? And I was like, good point. I did not frame the action at all. Like, what is the point of what we're doing? What are the stakes? What's the risk? Didn't have any of that. And I was like, oh,
Gotcha.
right. Let's let's do that. Let's try and figure out what those stakes are. So that's a part that I'm still working on, or it might just get totally thrown out. Like the inner council thing might get totally thrown out. So and then have it more of like an old school, like, oh, the sovereign just chooses all the contracts. Um, but that's something we're working on, and that's what playtesting is going to get us the next time around because we've had to take the break. The current playtest session done.
Okay.
In the process of looking at and editing the actual plays to release for YouTube. And I know you talked about getting the audio for it for
Yeah.
podcasting,
Yeah.
which I think would be awesome. Uh, I've got about a week or two from right now out in YouTube world or Spotify world. It probably has already happened of starting a new campaign that is focusing directly on an actual campaign build. I've already got the theme built out of it. It's going to be Revenge of the Aeronaut. It's going to involve the free city states. Um, it's going to be ship to ship combat. It's going to involve witches. It's going to all this fun stuff that we don't really get to play around a lot with. And that's what playtesting is going to be like. So I'm really excited. It's a lot of work. I didn't think the playtesting part would be take up as much time of mine as it did,
Oh, yeah.
but it's worth it because the idea of writing and rewriting the rule set to make it better for the adventure is something that has benefited our game a ton. So yeah, that's yeah, doing the playtesting, awesome. And we're going to be doing a lot more playtesting coming up soon, and hopefully you'll hear all about it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. Otherwise, I feel like I should have written it down beforehand when we were just talking about some of the other behind the scenes stuff. Was there anything else we have not hit on from that earlier chat? This feels like we've hit on basically all of
For
it.
like all the hats that we're wearing.
Yeah, yeah.
Boy, I mean, this is, and then, I mean, we haven't even talked about like meeting people, like actually just going out and meeting people, which is the thing I hate the most. But
Ah,
that
the
comes much
social
later.
hat. Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean that'll be a whole hat to think about as far as I mean, we're trying to hype and kind of promo and work on stuff right now, but
yeah,
if we want to do this Kickstarter at the level that I feel that we've been aiming for,
yeah,
it's going to take a full court press when it
yeah,
comes time, uh, which I think is more than either of us has ever done before.
yeah. Project manager, negotiating, um, and the negotiating shouldn't be much, but if you haven't done it before, talking about money with people, people can get a little skittish, you know, and you just have to be upfront, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we can do, and what we can't do, and kind of leave it
Yeah,
at that, you know?
yeah. We'll have thinking about just negotiating made me think post campaign. Then we're gonna have, of course, layout, but art director edits
Yeah,
and theoretically distribution and that sort of thing. So yeah,
yeah. These are all hats that we haven't even put on yet that we're getting ready to, and just kind of give people an insight. So Goblin Market has been out for over a year at this point, and I am going to my local brick and mortar game store around here still running playtest sessions to get people in there to buy the books and to just get the word out. So like
awesome.
it's that happened a year ago and I still need to write more adventures for it, which I'm excited for. So it doesn't really end, I guess.
No, no, it really, really doesn't, unless you get to a point where you can pay other people to do it for you instead.
Yeah. Yeah, let's figure that one out. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Uh, Boy, speaking of like it never ends, I think this episode might be getting there. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I
Where are
feel
we
like we've
at?
probably I think we've probably hit about the 45 on
Okay.
this one too. I That was one plus when I mentioned other different software I've used in the past. I do like that Zencaster gave me a
Running time.
running time. Yeah. And I just have to remember to look at the clock when we're using Craig, and I forget to do that sometimes.
Well, part of it, I mean, this is fun for us. Like I don't want
Yeah.
anyone to think otherwise. This is fun for us. It's just can be overwhelming a lot at times. And like Will has a real quote unquote, like I don't mean to put you in a box or anything. You have a real job
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah, like a day job. Yeah.
yeah, you have a day job that you have to go to. And for myself, full-time dadding while doing this as well, you know? So there's a there's that stuff on top of it, but we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't have the passion for it. And I hope that comes off, and I hope this inspires some folks anyway to try on some more hats, or if you feel like you have a hat that you can wear for us
There we go.
that we can afford, let us know, man.
Maybe instead of charts or pain t-shirts, we need hats that say that.
Yeah, yeah, I love a good hat. I'll take it. All right,
All right.
everyone. Thank you so much for listening and joining us for our journey. My name's Jared.
And I'm Will.
We're making a game. Bye.
Bye.